Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Vivek Ramaswamy does not back down to Chris Cuomo and addresses the vile controversies that have occurred in the town of Cincinnati just a few days ago. Let's dive in.
But specifically to what's happening in Cincinnati, what do you think it is about, and why does it deserve the angle you have taken on it?
Well, look, Cincinnati is my hometown. It's where I was born and raised, and obviously it's an important city in the state that I'm running to lead. And in my book, Chris, this isn't actually about race. This is about people in their country and in their city just feeling safe when they go out to have a good time in the city, which is something that people across races and, frankly, across political parties ought to be unified on, and I think we are unified on. But the sad reality is Cincinnati is a place where it wasn't what it once was. Crime has been up year on year. And I think it's true across so many of the cities in our country as well, in part related to national currents like defund the police several years ago, an anti-cop culture that I do think has permeated much of our country, so many of our cities, that I'd like to turn around in the state of Ohio. So I want a Cincinnati where people are able to come together, to be able to go to their city, have a good time without fear of getting beaten up or assaulted. And I think what we saw on Friday night did shock the conscience. I think there are some reasonable questions to be asked, like why wasn't there a greater police presence that night with a national music festival, with sports games in that area of Cincinnati? I do that not to blame anybody, but hopefully to chart a better course for the future where we are able to restore law and order. And frankly, I don't care what political party you're in. I want you to be safe in our cities. And that's the way I'd like to lead our state.
I agree with you about the culture shift towards policing, and it's regrettable, and I don't know what to do about it. I don't agree as much about the basis of concern because I'm looking at graphs that show crime basically flat in Cincinnati and Cleveland, so I don't really see a scourge of crime, and especially with high-value crimes, and 5 of the last 6 governors are Republicans. So, how is this a Democrat problem? How is it a crime problem?
Well, look, I didn't mention the word Democrat, but I did say it's a part of a defund the police movement that exists in a fringe of the Democrat Party. And we can go to the politics of it later. I do want to talk about crime because you brought up an interesting point. I actually talked to police even earlier this week, someone from the Fraternal Order of Police, just on Monday of this week, about this question as a macro matter. Absolute crimes maybe not have really gone up, maybe have stayed flat. But what he tells me and what police across the state tell me is that the character of the crime, the nature of violent crime, has actually gotten much worse. And if you look at even the city of Cincinnati today, the hard statistics, well, the nature,
Vivek,
even if the absolute number of crimes are flat, the violent crimes have gone up. So the nature of the violence of the crimes has increased. And in part, if you just look at hard statistics, Chris, because I know you're a numbers guy as well, in the city of Cincinnati today, you have a 1 in 137 out of 137 people chance of facing some type of violent crime. And I just think that's too high. So what's the answer? Look, I've gotten messages from friends, fellow high school classmates across greater Cincinnati saying this is an issue that people haven't felt comfortable talking about. We need to talk about it in the open. And I, like you, do believe that open dialogue is part of our path forward as a country. That's why on Monday night, I'm going back to my hometown. We're hosting Open Dialogue. It's a former vice mayor of the city that's co-hosting it with me, who happens to have also been a 10-year president of the Cincinnati chapter of the NAACP. And we're going to have an open dialogue. I want to hear all perspectives. And politically, I don't care whether you agree with me on other issues or not. I want the best solutions for how we're able to restore law and order.
For a genius, I don't know why this guy says dumb shite like this on such a regular basis, but do you want to echo that, or do you want to correct it as an assertion? Not that you own what Elon says, but you guys are somewhat tacitly connected for my audience.
I'm not even familiar with the comment that you're referring to, so you'd have to kind of educate me on the facts there.
He said that the attack is a racial issue. He asked why there were 0 stories, and he suggested it was because the victims were white.
Yeah, look, I think that there are some, I'm focused on Ohio right now. I think there have been some concerning comments in Ohio, one of which, frankly, came from a city councilwoman in Cincinnati, Chris. And you think about that city council, I'm looking at my state, the state I'm looking at leading. That city councilwoman, she posted this publicly. These are approximately exactly her words. They were begging for that beatdown, and she was glad as how it played out. And that did have a racial undertone to it. So I just reject the idea of taking a situation like this and using it to achieve some sort of cultural end. But I do think it's a real issue that we can't sweep under the rug either. And there are some people, I think, who have an issue to say even a bigger problem than the assault is somebody else noticing it. No, I don't think that's acceptable. We can't just sweep this under the rug because it feels uncomfortable to talk about. But I would like to do it in a way that unites people.
Vivek, as usual, fundamentally understands how to answer these questions. And this is one of the tougher topics to talk about. There's so much taboo in incidents like these, because if you've seen the video, it's a one-sided affair. It is not... This whole situation could have been avoided if people had simply just, let it roll off their back. All right? There was no need for this sort of violence, but Vivek is getting it right here because he's talking about the idea of what it means to be unified, how to actually come together as Americans. And remember, America is a giant melting pot. We have multiple little micro-states, and I'm not talking about individual states. I'm talking about almost cultural nations. And we have one of the most unique genetic makeups in the United States, and it deserves to be talked about in a positive light, but so many people don't understand how to do it properly. And the rhetoric that has come out from Cincinnati politicians has been an endemic problem across the country, and particularly in major cities, because these council members, these police chiefs, they don't really know how to properly respond. The police chief got up and was angry at the press, of all people, instead of the perpetrators. Then you've got different city council members using terrible rhetoric, and I'll get to that in a moment. And then Chris Cuomo is talking about Republican governors? This is a Democrat-run town. What are you talking about? Hey, y'all. Experts say they rig the markets, print the money, and manipulate the system. But here's the truth. They can't print gold. While the dollar weakens, physical gold and silver stay real, tangible, uncontrolled. When banks go digital and emergencies lock you out of your own funds, gold and silver won't need an internet connection or government permission. Their value is outside the system, a time-tested insurance policy against tyranny, inflation, and economic resets. So don't wait until the trap is sprung. Own what the elites hoard behind closed doors. Physical gold and silver off the grid, because when the system fails, real money talks. And to help you learn more about owning physical gold and silver, we have partnered with the great company Goldco, which supports this channel, which we deeply appreciate. So check out politibralgold.com for more info and see if you might even qualify for free silver. That's politibralgold.com. No one knows how to properly address these issues. And that rhetoric then becomes even weirder and weirder. It has no basis in logic, mainly because rich white liberals who live in their little enclaves, they don't want to admit the crime that happens outside of their neighborhoods. They don't want to admit it because they've never seen it, and it makes them feel bad about themselves because they know deep down they have done something wrong and have voted in the wrong people and keep doing it because they would much rather have policies that tickle their underbellies instead of actually having policies that benefit the poor people who suffer because of it. Here's just an example of bad rhetoric from an elected official in Cincinnati. On Wednesday, Cincinnati City Council President Pro Tem Victoria Parks commented on Facebook on a Facebook video of the fight, saying they begged for that beatdown. I am grateful for the whole story. You have got to be kidding me. See, this is how you misuse your platform. This is how you misuse your ability to use rhetoric. And Democrats, strangely enough, are terrified of misused rhetoric, mainly because the ideas in the Democrat Party center around sort of this social structure. In the Republican Party, it's when we're being hyperbolic, we're wanting to be taken seriously, not literally. When Democrats are being hyperbolic, they want to be taken literally, not seriously. It's this very weird disconnect, and Democrats assume the Republicans talk on the same sort of wavelength, and we don't. We don't. That's a fundamental difference, and Vivek is trying to fuse those two together properly because the Democrats are the party that constantly talks about the idea of unity. Let's all come together. Let's all get along. Let's all be happy. What they really mean is do what we say and shut up. Republicans are more like, no, let's stay apart. You respect your space, I'll respect mine. And you respect my space, I'll respect yours. It's the whole idea that, yes, good fences make good neighbors. That's why we talk about a border wall. But the reality of this whole situation boils down to the fact that Democrats do not know. At their core, they just don't know how to deal with these problems because they can't admit that there is one. If they did, it makes them feel uncomfortable. And so Cuomo is trying to shift blame here onto Republican governors? You've got to be kidding me. I thought Cuomo was turning a corner. He had a great conversation with Tucker Carlson about a year ago, and Tucker just looked at him and said, "You're not a curious person." And Cuomo just kind of paused and admitted that, oh, you're right. And I thought that meant that with his new job in a new media space, in a new media sphere, he would start turning a corner, but I guess he hasn't. He hasn't because he's still trying to speak to the senses of rich white liberals who do not want to admit that there's a problem just outside of their gated communities. There's a much larger problem going on as well, but that's not what this channel's dedicated to do. The issues of rhetoric keep on getting weirder and weirder and weirder as social media does continue to expand. The police chief does have a point that social media does make this worse. This is a problem of the way the algorithms work. If you say something, the algorithm will take that, and then they'll try to give you exactly what you want. And you get into this terrible echo chamber, and I do my best in order to curtail my own inner issues when it comes to what I want to see from my own algorithms, from Facebook, from YouTube. I want to see military history videos, sports analysis, and particularly fantasy football analysis. I don't want to see stuff like this. And so that tells you that there's an underlying problem that's much, much deeper. But the reality starts with rhetoric. If you can't talk about social taboo, if you cannot speak about issues in your own backyard, then there's a problem that's much deeper, and it has to start with the fact that rich white liberals need to admit that they have allowed problems to fester, and you get situations like this. This is why I say Democrats can't govern, and this is the real reason. They can't admit that there's a problem. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Till then, y'all have a good one.